Hey everybody, welcome to episode 5 of Fitness and Money, Maximizing Your Health and Wealth. Thanks for joining me today. You might notice I have a red shirt on, and that is indicative of what is happening right now to the stock market and to probably most everyone's investments. Unless you are 100% sitting in cash, your investments have taken a beating this year, and they are taking a beating this year. They may continue to take a beating this year, but when we get to the finance portion, we're going to try to talk a little bit more about that. Right now, things are not good in the stock market. There's a lot of headwinds, things the stock market is facing. But I want you to think about this. If you are 100% in cash, if you have all of your money sitting in a savings account right now or sitting under your mattress with inflation at 8.3% and your money getting 0%, you're actually losing money. You're actually losing anywhere between 6 and 8%. So your purchasing power has gone down 6 to 8% by keeping that money quote unquote safe. So having it under your mattress, or having it sitting in a savings account, or having it in a checking account, I would ask you, is your money really safe? I don't believe so. And over the long term, we've discussed the stock market is really the only way to build wealth. It returns on average somewhere about 9%, and that's taking all of the years, way back decades, up to present, and then annualizing it. So, something to think about. Today, we're going to be doing our second chest exercise. That's going to be flat bench dumbbell presses. Now, when anybody hears presses and you're in a gym, almost everybody in the gym is, well, some people in the gym, how much do you press? How much do you press? They're overdoing all kinds of crazy contortions of trying to get that bar off the rack and then pushing it up, sometimes using their back, arching, doing all that different kinds of things to get that heaviest amount of weight that they can press. That is so counterproductive. Number one, you're going to hurt yourself if you do that and you're in the gym. And number two, it's just not working the muscle correctly. Again, we're all about form here. We're all about working the muscle to its maximum without involving other muscles, whether they be stabilizer muscles or supporting muscles, kind of the same thing. But we want to be able to just work whatever body part that we're working on that day. So we're going to do, again, flat dumbbell bench presses. I'm going to show you the wrong way to do them first. And you might notice last week when I was doing pullovers, I didn't really show you the wrong way to do it because honestly, if you follow what I said, most people that are doing them in the gym, if you're using a dumbbell, they're doing it right for the most part. They're either working their back, which is the way that we did it last week, actually 2 weeks ago. They're either working their back, or if they're doing it wrong, they're probably working their chest. So I guess I'm going to give everybody a pass on that one, just because it's kind of hard to do it wrong, I guess, is what I'm saying. So enough said with that one. So what we need to do here is we're going to need 2 dumbbells, or we're going to need 2 kettlebells. Again, there are ways that I'm going to show you a little bit down the line that you can use straps and bands. But for right now, we're going to stick with kettlebells, dumbbells, or these power blocks that I like to use just for convenience. So there are 2 ways that you can get these up to your body. I hesitate to tell you the way that most people do it, but I guess I have to show you anyways because I don't think it's the right way to do it. So I'm going to take one dumbbell, I'm going to put it here. I'm going to take the other dumbbell, I'm going to put it over here. So we're going to go back on the bench, and we're going to reach out for these dumbbells. The reason that I don't like this way is because, again, in order to get a weight, especially if it's a somewhat heavy weight, you have to, in order to get that weight in place, you're taking your entire shoulder and all of these muscles here. You know, you've got your 3 heads of your shoulder, and we'll go over that when we get to shoulders, but I just don't think this is optimal for picking up a weight. So the way that we want to do it is we're going to, similar to what we did with the dumbbell pullover for your back, except that we have 2 dumbbells this time. We're going to put the dumbbells here, and we are going to pick both of them up, and we're going to go back on the bench. So we're going back on the bench. Okay, so now we're in position. And again, it doesn't matter whether you put your feet on the floor or your feet on the bench. I'm just used to putting them on the bench. Again, it's not going to matter at all. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that the dumbbells are pretty much right like this. We don't want them in here. We don't want them way out here. We want them right about here. I would say that's probably shoulder width, which is good. So what we're going to do is we're going to press them up and bring them down. Press them up and bring them down. The one thing that bench pressing does not allow is range of motion. The one thing that dumbbell bench pressing, I should say the one thing barbell bench pressing does not allow, dumbbell pressing does allow range of motion. You can only go down so far with a barbell. If you happen to have a fairly large chest, you're going to be stopped at wherever the bar is going to hit on your chest. When you have dumbbells, the range of motion is significantly more, i.e. better. So again, you can go down, and this is kind of where we want to go, right here, right to this angle, push back up, down, push back up. Now, some people might ask, do we want to push those dumbbells straight up, or do we want to push them so that we come together like that and then go back out and like that and back out? I'm going to say I want you to do this. And the reason that I want you to push them up at that shoulder, about even with your shoulders, is because when you do this, it makes me almost think of a fly. And we covered flies last week, and when anything comes together here, it makes me think more of a fly. Remember, flies last week were out here and back in the middle, and out here and back in the middle. That's how we did flies. All we're doing this week is we're rotating this way, shoulder width, and we're pressing out, and we're going up, and we're pressing out, and we're going up. Okay, so now I'm going to show you what a lot of people at the gym do, and please don't do this. I mean, just don't do it. You'll get injured. The extra weight that you're able to use on the dumbbell or barbell is not going to matter. It's not going to make a difference. So you'll see people, and they'll be here like this. They'll come down, and then they'll do this. And then they'll come down, and then they'll do this. And then they'll come down, and then they'll do this. Okay? Please, 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 do not arch your back when you are doing this exercise. The exercise is not meant to be done that way. Your back needs to be completely flat on the bench, and you need to use good form when you're pushing up with those dumbbells. Don't turn them this way. Don't turn them this way. We want them straight up, shoulder width, I would say. That's going to be the optimum way to do this particular exercise. Again, we're going to be taking about, when we get into the whole routine, we're going to be taking about 30 seconds between sets, and that will pretty much optimize, as I talked about last week, 2 weeks ago. It's going to optimize the anaerobic and the aerobic portion of getting a workout. So not only are we going to be working those muscles, and it's actually tearing down muscle fibers and building them back up, but we're also going to be getting, because we're moving quick, we're going to be feeling like we're really huffing along there. And that's going to be good because that's going to take our metabolism and it's going to take our heart rate and it's going to jack it up. And even after you stop working out, your heart rate and metabolism, actually heart rate might come down a little quicker, but your metabolism eventually is going to stay at a higher level. So, you know, the people that say that, well, you have to do aerobic exercise only to burn fat, totally disagree with that. Yes, aerobic exercise done correctly will burn fat. But what about those of us, and I'm not sure I'm in that camp or not, because I do like to bike and I do like to hike, but what about those people that don't like to run or don't like to jog, or maybe even don't like to walk, or any other aerobic exercise you can think? Not that it's not good for you, because it is, and I think everybody should, but if for some reason that you're focused on weightlifting and that's what you like, you can get the aerobic benefit and the fat loss benefit from weightlifting if you take your sets, 30 seconds between sets, move quick, move quick, move quick. You'll burn fat. Trust me, you will burn fat. Okay, so let's move to the financial portion here. We ended up, I think we wanted to talk about, this week we want to talk about dollar cost averaging. We want to talk about the rule of 72, which we talked about months before, but I want to go over that again. And we want to talk about portfolio construction at different age groups. I noticed last week, by the way, that I went on for 30 minutes. Can't do that. So I'm going to try to cut these down to, say, sometimes maybe it'll be 15, 20. I think everybody kind of loses their ability to concentrate after a certain amount of time. I know that's been proven when you're in school, that after a certain amount of time, you no longer pay attention. So let's talk about dollar cost averaging. If you're working, dollar cost averaging is a must. You have to be able to, every single week. That's why it's important to pay yourself first and make it automatic, whether it be through your IRA, 401k, Roth, any other plan that you have where you are able to put money away on a weekly or every other week basis. You have to do it. And the reason is, let's take a look at the stock market right now. The stock market is down, and I'm going to gauge this by something called the S&P 500, which is what most people use as a gauge for the stock market. It's the biggest 500 stocks in the US. So looking at the S&P 500, it's probably down 20% right now. So you might say, man, 20%, I shouldn't be putting any money in. Actually, that's exactly the opposite. You should actually be putting money in when the stock market is down. I want you to think of it, and I think I brought this up before, I want you to think of it as buying something on sale. You got your mutual fund here or your stocks that you're buying, and let's say you're at TJ Maxx and you're looking for this particular sweater or jacket. That sweater or jacket, you go in there on one day and it's currently $100, and you're like, that's too expensive. I can't buy it at $100. Say you go in 2 weeks later and they got the thing marked down on sale and it says 20% off. So now your $100 coat is something, significantly less. It's $80. You might say, wow, that's good. I wonder if maybe I should wait for a few more weeks. So you decide to. You wait a couple more weeks and you go back in and that jacket or coat or sweater or whatever it is marked 50% off. So that $100 article of clothing is now $50 versus maybe a month and a half, 2 months ago, you wanted to buy it was $100. Look at your mutual funds and your stocks the same way. When the stock market is down, you are getting the chance to buy that mutual fund or those great companies that you like, either independently or in that mutual fund. You're buying it on sale. So what's going to happen is you're going to buy that mutual fund low. The market is going to recover. It always does. It's just a matter of time. And you're going, and that mutual fund is going to recover over what period of time, and that particular stock or fund that you bought, let's say at $50, maybe now it's $60 or $70 or $80, or maybe it goes up back to that retail price of $100. That was great. That was great on your part for staying the course every week, every other week, dollar cost averaging into that mutual fund or that group of stocks. You are buying that fund or stocks at a discount on sale. So whenever you get confused or you think, well, why would I want to do that? Think of that analogy of that article of clothing in whatever store you want being too high priced, but you wait for it, and over a period of weeks, or months, it goes down a certain percentage. Now that works a little bit in reverse as well, because there is going to come a time when the stock market is going to go up and it's going to be at all-time highs. Now you're still going to be buying every week, every other week. You're still going to be buying those stocks or that mutual fund, but now you're going to be buying it at all-time highs. Now that doesn't mean that the stock market can't go higher and you were technically still buying it lower, but you can see what I'm talking about when I say that, buying something at full price is probably not as good as buying something 50, 60, 20, 30% off, whatever the percentage is. So try to keep that analogy in mind, all right? So second, we're going to talk about the Rule of 72. And again, the Rule of 72 is something that usually gets people excited. It should get people excited, especially when you base the stock market on overall average returns over the past, decades. Stock market probably returns, let's say 9%. And if it's not exactly 9%, I apologize, but it's pretty close. 9%, if you look at it and you annualize it over X number of years, it probably returns 9%. So the Rule of 72 is basically, you can figure out how long it's going to take to double your money. Everybody likes, doubling my money, that's good. So let's say you start with $100,000. And again, I'm just picking that number. It could be $10, it could be $100, it could be $1,000, it could be $10,000. I'm just picking $100,000. Say you start with $100,000. You want to know how long it's going to take for that $100,000 to go to $200,000. Well, if you look at the Rule of 72, basically it's a calculation. You take the interest rate that you think you are going to get on that invested money and divide that into 72. So in this case, it would be 72 divided by 9, because 9 is the interest rate that we think we're going to get on our money. 72, it's the rule of 72. So that ends up being 72 divided by 9 is 8. So it's going to take you 8 years in order to double your money. So your 100 goes to 200,000 in 8 years. That 200 goes to 400 in another 8 years. That 400 goes to 800 in another 8 years. And you can just extrapolating that out. Now, nothing works that perfectly, because there are years in the stock market where the stock market might go up 9%, the average. There's also going to be years when it'll go down 20 or 25%, and years that it might go up 30 or 35%. So that's just inevitable. That's the way the stock market works. But when you try to smooth out all of those averages over the long period, it ends up averaging to be about 9%. This is where we get into your age and how your age plays a lot into this, and your allocations that you need to have for your particular age. If you are 20 years old, 30 years old, 40 years old, you have a lot of years ahead of you, presumably, before you retire. So you can afford to take more risk in the stock market than people that are older, because you have more time to recover from those down markets. You have more doubling periods than someone who is 65, 70, 75. If they take a huge hit to their portfolio, they don't have enough time left, enough years left to recover. So that's why I would say that anybody who's in that 20s, 30s, 40s category, should probably be, I'm thinking like 80 to 90% invested in stocks or stock mutual funds. That's the way you're gonna build your wealth. That other 10%, maybe it's in bonds, maybe it's in cash sitting on the sidelines. You should always have cash available to invest. And again, when are you going to invest that cash? Not when the stock market is at its all-time high. If you have extra cash, you're going to invest it when it's at its low, so that when it recovers, your stock or mutual fund will have appreciated that much more. If you think about that, it definitely makes sense. So when you start getting into your 50s, 60s, 70s, and if you're lucky enough to live beyond that, like I said, you don't have those doubling periods left. You can't recover from a large hit to your portfolio. So you might want to back that off. Now, the old rule of thumb, they call it the 60-40, which means 60% in stocks and 40% in bonds or cash. And again, when I say cash, I mean either sitting in your savings account, which I don't recommend, sitting in money market accounts, sitting in certificates of deposit, things like that. That's when I say cash, that's pretty much what I mean. Bonds, again, that's a whole nother thing, about bonds and how bond interest is paid and how it's not supposed to be correlated to the stock market, although this year it is in 2022 because bonds are going down as well. But there's reasons for that. I don't need to get in that now. So 50s, 60s, and 70s, I'm going to say that you probably still need to be allocated 75% perhaps into stocks and 25% into bonds or cash. There's going to be investment gurus who are going to say that is way too risky to put 75% of your assets in the stock market. My recant to that is if you don't put a good portion of your money in the stock market, it's never going to continue to grow. You need those investments in the stock market. Even if they're depressed right now at low prices, they will come back. And if you've added money to them at low prices, that's great. You're going to have even more. They will come back. And when they come back, that's the only way that you're going to continue to accrue wealth, in your 50s into retirement. Because, in the old days, when life expectancies were in their 50s or 60s, I wouldn't be saying this right now, but, you take somebody who's 60 years old, there's a pretty good chance they're going to live to 90. Now, that's 30 years. That's a long time. You know that the stock market is going to continue to trend up over those 30 years. I mean, geez, you worked for 30 years and you had your allocations very aggressive in terms of how you wanted to accumulate wealth. You can't then, when you reach 60, decide, well, I'm just going to put it all in, I'm going to put it all in cash, or I'm going to put it all in bonds, because the return you're going to get on that money is just not going to be enough to last you for another 30 years. 30 years, that's a long time. That's why you have to continue to be invested in stocks even as you get older. And again, that's strictly due to life expectancies. So I think that's where I'm going to wrap it for this week. Again, I don't want to go on for 30 minutes. Next week, we'll get into some other financial topics, maybe get a little bit more in depth into some of the stock market, how it works, how you make sure that you're dollar cost averaging, and a little bit more probably into the mechanics of exactly what's going on in the economy right now. A lot of people, they see inflation, they see oil prices, they see mortgage rates go up, they see all of this happening, and they see their stock portfolio falling. I'm going to tell you that the things that need to happen in the economy for the markets to start turning back up, I don't know when that's going to. I used to have that magic 8-ball, and it used to give me the answer to whatever I wanted. I don't have that magic 8-ball. I don't know exactly when that's going to turn. I just know that history being on our side, this is a down year for sure. Probably going to end down, maybe even uglier. I don't know. But wherever it ends, there is going to be light at the end of the tunnel. And when that light at the end of the tunnel comes, I hope that you've been averaging into your investments at lower prices so that you can reap those rewards once the stock market does turn. So what we're going to be kind of flipping here, as I said, I ad lib here. I don't go by a chart that I'm reading, even though it's still over there. Next week, we're going to cover our last chest exercise, and that's going to be presses, but we're going to do them a different way. We're going to do close grip presses, and that's going to not only work a particular portion of our chest, but it's also going to prep us for triceps. It's going to get our triceps really lubricated up, because now that I'm thinking about it, I might want to do triceps as our next body part, because when we start the workouts, we may end up going chest triceps. A lot of people do that. It's called the push-pull system, and that would be the pushing portion. When you do your chest exercises, you're pushing. It's pretty simple to understand. When we do our triceps, we're going to be pushing. Pulling is more the back and biceps. And when I say pulling, think of that one-arm dumbbell row that we did. We pull, we pull, we pull. And when we get to the biceps, that's going to also be pulling motion as opposed to a pushing motion. So enough said for this week. I hope you liked the podcast. I hope you've liked the first few podcasts. Again, we're going to be doing these probably every 3 days or so we can stay fresh with what's going on, both fitness-wise and with the investment markets. If you like the podcast, please hit the like button. If you want to subscribe, that would be great as well. Again, we're going to expand. We're going to get into supplementation. We're going to get into all different kinds of things that relative to healthy living. I'll probably, instead of having my water bottle here with me next week, I'll probably have my shake that I make every single day, and I'll tell you what to put it in it. Super easy, super nutritious, and Hope you liked everything this week again, and have a good one. See you next time.